You have dreamed more than once of becoming unshakable. Someone who no longer flinches at criticism, who is not undone by rejection, by loss, by betrayal. You have longed for the day when that silent ache, the one that gnaws at you from the inside, even while you smile and insist that you are fine, finally goes quiet. Perhaps you are simply tired. Tired of pleasing everyone. Tired of holding up an image that demands strength at every hour, when all you really wanted was to set the weight down, just for a moment, and rest. So let me say to you what perhaps no one has had the courage to say. As long as you try to escape your pain, it will go on ruling you. As long as you numb yourself, shield yourself, hide yourself, you will remain a hostage to the words that wound you, to the people who disappoint you, to the silences that quietly kill something in you. And understand this, it is not weakness, it is the condition of nearly every human being alive. The only difference is that some have simply learned to pretend better than others. I once wrote that we are not what happens to us, but what we choose to become. And there lies the whole key. This was never about building a wall between yourself and the world. It was never about turning cold, indifferent, untouchable. It is about something far harder and far truer: integration, the bringing into the light of everything that right now controls you from the dark. Because real strength is not the absence of pain. It is the full and unflinching awareness of who you are, even while you are bleeding. This is for you, the one who is exhausted from being hurt by everything and everyone, the one who feels forever at some emotional disadvantage, as though other people hold a power over you that you cannot name. I want to show you that it does not have to be this way. But to get there, you will have to face a few truths that may wound you. And perhaps, for the first time in your life, the pain will be the very thing that sets you free. You believe that what hurts you is out there, in the actions of others, in a poorly chosen word, in the abandonments you suffered, the betrayals you never saw coming. But the truth is harder than that. None of it has the power to hurt you, unless there is already an open wound inside you for it to find. What wounds you is not what others do, it is what their actions awaken in you. The story you tell yourself about what happened, the old injury that was never tended, the emptiness you have learned to disguise with strength, with pride, with that desperate need to appear well and whole. The pain you feel before the outer world is only a reflection of what has not yet been made whole in your inner one. This is why one person can pass through a devastating loss and keep their clarity, while another is shattered by a single careless remark. It was never about what happened, it is about where, inside you, it landed. And here is the truth that will be hardest to hear. You still suffer so deeply because somewhere within you still believe you can control how the world ought to treat you. You are still trying to be good enough, clever enough, strong enough, understanding enough, as though if you only manage it perfectly, no one will ever hurt you again. But control is an illusion, and while you cling to it, you live in a constant low tension, forever trying to predict the unpredictable, forever trying to avoid the inevitable. So you wish to stop suffering? Then stop protecting yourself from suffering. What you need is not more control, it is more awareness. As long as you believe other people must change before your pain can end, you remain their prisoner. Your freedom begins the moment you understand that nothing from outside holds any power over you unless it finds an echo already living within. And that is exactly where the real battlefield lies, the unconscious. What you do not see, do not understand, and do not master will master you. The greatest lie you have been told is that you are in control of your own life. You are not. Not as long as you live on automatic, reacting without knowing why, feeling without understanding where the feeling comes from, making the very choices you will later quietly sabotage. I said it as plainly as I could. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And that is precisely what is happening to you now. The pain that arrives unbidden, the anger that erupts from nowhere, the sadness that floods in without explanation. None of it is random. These are messages sent up from the parts of you that you have forgotten, ignored, and pushed down. The unconscious is not some vague mist of stray thoughts. It is an active force, a whole living system of memories, wounds, desires, and fears that you do not wish to face, and which go on deciding every single day what you feel and how you act. You wonder why certain words destroy you, while others let the same words roll off. It is because those words press on points still alive and unhealed inside you. And if they are still alive, it is because you have never turned and confronted them. You only swept them beneath the rug, and now you trip over them again and again in the dark. I also wrote that we cannot change anything until we accept it. That condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. And what have you been doing all this time? Judging yourself, repressing yourself, silencing yourself, as if that ever solved a single thing. The unconscious does not vanish because you refuse to look at it. It only finds more dangerous ways to make itself known. In the toxic bonds you keep repeating, in the patterns of self-sabotage you cannot seem to break, in the strange anxiety that rises just when everything finally seems to be going well. This is not bad luck. It is your own depths trying to wake you while you insist on sleeping. If any of this is reaching you, subscribe to this channel. What comes next goes one level deeper into where the real change begins. Most people believe the only way to stop being hurt is to close themselves off. So they build the walls, they craft the masks, they forge the emotional armor and declare, "Nothing affects me. I do not care anymore." But behind all of it, they go on bleeding. They go on quietly corroding. Because the problem was never that you feel. The problem is that you do not know what you are feeling or why. And that affliction belongs to those who have not yet come to know themselves. I once said that you may know all the theories and master all the techniques, but when you touch a human soul, be simply another human soul. And that soul, the one you keep hiding behind a strong, invulnerable, perfectly controlled character, is screaming to be seen. To become emotionally strong has nothing to do with being cold. Nothing to do with ignoring your pain, dodging every conflict, pretending not to care. It has to do with integration, with acceptance, with dragging into the daylight everything you have buried in the dark. You do not become untouchable by raising a barrier between yourself and the world. You become untouchable the moment you realize that no one can wound what you have already embraced within yourself. When you take in your shadow, your fears, your flaws, your insecurities, you stop reacting to everything. You begin to observe. You begin to choose. You are no longer a puppet pulled by your own emotions. And that is what freedom actually is. I gave this process a name: individuation, the becoming of who you truly are, not who others expect you to be. Not who you decided you must be in order to be accepted, but who emerges from within, from the meeting of your light and your shadow, of the ego and the unconscious. Individuation is not a path toward perfection. It is a path toward wholeness. You do not need to become a better person. You need to become a whole one. And here is the secret no one thought to tell you. The more you run from pain, the more relentlessly it hunts you. The more you strain not to be affected, the more fragile you grow. But the day you turn and face your own wounds, the day you accept who you are with all that is beautiful and all that is ugly in you, the noble and the shameful alike, nothing outside you keeps the power to take you apart. You were taught to hate pain from the time you were small, that suffering is a sign of weakness, that tears are a waste, that to feel too much is to be exposed. So you learn to run, to deny, to look away. But the more you flee from suffering, the more it pursues you. And worse, it changes its shape. It disguises itself as anxiety, as sudden anger, as a flat grey numbness or a restless emptiness, or impulses to harm yourself that you cannot even trace to a source. Ignored pain does not disappear. It only digs tunnels beneath you until one day, without warning, the ground gives way. I saw suffering in a wholly different light. I believed pain was the messenger of the soul, the alarm bell of the unconscious, the language the deepest self uses to finally seize your attention. I once said that depression is like a woman dressed in black. If she appears at your door, do not drive her away. Invite her in. Offer her a seat, pour her a coffee, and listen to what she has come to say. But you do not listen. You silence yourself, distract yourself, fill every hour, dull every nerve, doing anything at all to avoid looking at the one thing that matters. What is this pain trying to show you? The truth is that your suffering cuts so deep only because you are still at war with yourself. One part of you longs to grow, another clings desperately to keeping everything exactly as it is. Something in you cries out for transformation, and your ego, so used to being in control, tries to smother that cry. And in that friction, the pain is born, because change hurts, growth hurts. To release old beliefs, to cut the ties that poison you, to let what no longer serves you finally die, all of it is a kind of mourning, an inner process of death and rebirth. But it is precisely in that ruin that something new becomes possible. When everything in you has been pulled apart, when your certainties collapse, when pain lays your vulnerability completely bare, you can at last see who you really are, without the layers of protection, without the performance, without the mask. And at that exact moment, suffering becomes something sacred, because it has brought you to your knees before the only thing that can ever set you free, yourself. I understood that suffering is not a breakdown of the system. It is part of the process. Pain is not the end of the road. It is the beginning of the journey toward individuation. Most people give up before they ever cross that dark valley. They flee, they distract, they scramble back to the surface, but not you. Few people find the courage to even begin this journey. Fewer still complete it. Because this path promises you no comfort, offers no guarantees, and protects nothing in your ego. It dismantles it. Individuation means becoming who you are, and that, above all, means unlearning what you have always thought you were. And that wounds you more than any rejection from outside ever could. Because you begin to see that so much of what defined you was only an illusion. You are not your achievements. You are not your wounds. You are not the careful image you built so that you might be loved, respected, admired. All of that was the self you constructed simply to survive. But to survive is not to live. and individuation is the call of life beyond mere survival. I wrote that individuation demands the dissolution of the persona, for the persona is only a mask of collective convenience. In other words, you will have to tear away your own skin to discover what lies beneath it. And it is in this very process that you begin to become untouchable. Not because nothing affects you any longer, but because you have already walked through the fire. You have faced your own monsters. You have looked your shame, your neediness, your rage directly in the eyes and said, "I see you, and you no longer rule me." It is this inner clarity, this lucidity before your own darkness, that gives you a strength owing nothing to approval, to recognition, to control. You no longer need to be loved by everyone. You no longer need to win every argument. You no longer need to appear strong, because you know who you are. And that is something no one can take from you. True emotional armor is not a shell around you. It is a core within you, the gathering of all your parts into a single center of consciousness that holds steady through any storm. You may feel pain, but it does not break you. You may be hurt, but you do not lose yourself, because you have stopped being a creature of reaction and become whole. But this depth carries a price: loneliness. Not because you will be alone, but because few people can follow you to where you are going. Most remain on the surface, inside their masks, inside their fear of feeling. And as you begin to free yourself, you will inevitably drift apart from them. Yet this drifting is not rejection, it is ripening. You do not pull away out of pride. You pull away because you no longer fit in the places where you once hid. And so we come to the last truth. Nothing, nothing at all, will shield you from the suffering of the world if you remain blind to what moves inside you. The words will keep wounding, the rejections will keep stinging, the losses will keep dragging you down, until you wake. And waking is no sudden miracle. It is a daily choice. It is turning inward even when it hurts. It is taking responsibility for everything you feel without handing the blame to others or the past or fate. I said that what you resist persists, but what you accept begins to transform. You have spent your whole life resisting the fear of not being enough, the emptiness of rejection, the ache of loneliness, the anguish of going unseen. And what did you do with all of it? You hid. You silenced yourself. You tried to control everything, tried to be perfect, tried to be strong. And every bit of it has carried you here, to this moment, worn out from fighting both the world and yourself. But now you know. True immunity of the heart is not hardness, it is clarity. It is not the building of armor, it is the widening of awareness. Because once you understand your own triggers, your own patterns, your own wounds, the actions of others lose their power to destroy you. You still feel, but you no longer drown. You still suffer, but you no longer lose yourself, and that changes everything. What protects you is not hiding from life, it is diving down into it. Those who live on the surface are tossed by every passing wave, but those who descend discover that below there is silence and steadiness and power. That is where you are headed. And when you finally live from that place, from integration, from presence, from acceptance, the world may still try to knock you down, but it will no longer find anywhere left to land its blow. So I will leave you with this. You were never meant to become a stone that feels nothing. You were meant to become a person so deeply known to themselves that nothing can ever be used against them. If something in you has stirred while listening, if some quiet door has opened, write 2 words below. I choose awareness. Let us see how many are ready to stop merely surviving behind a mask and finally begin to live in the truth. And stay for the next video. This journey is not yet finished, and the worst thing you could do now is stop at the very first step.